I want you to imagine that you are building a country from a scratch, no inherited system, just a room full of people, a blank page, and a weight of building something that has to outlast every person in it. You have argued about rights, courts, the economy, and now you reach the single most consequential decision of all. Who holds power? One person directly elected with a fixed term and the authority to act decisively, or a body of representatives where the executive must earn its right to govern every single day and can be removed the moment it loses the rule. One model gave the world the United States, the other gave the world United Kingdom, and every democracy in the history has to choose between them. Most citizens live inside that choice their whole life without ever understanding it. But today, we are going to change that. There are two dominant models of the democracy in the world. In the presidential system, the executive is separate from the legislature. The president is elected directly by the people, serves a fixed term, and cannot easily be removed between elections short of impeachment. For example, United States, Brazil, Indonesia, and Mexico. In a parliamentary system, the executive comes from within the legislature. The Prime Minister govern only as long as they hold the confidence of the Parliament. Lose a no confidence vote and government falls. No fixed term of safety, no guaranteed runway. For example, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, and India. One concentrates power in a single person with a national mandate, the other distributes it and demands accountability every single day. Neither is superior in the abstract. Both have produced great democracies and catastrophic failures. The real question is never which is better in the theory. It is which was right for a specific country at a specific moment and why. So let's try to find an answer to that question. 1949 New Delhi. India has just survived 200 years of colonial rule and one of the most violent partitions in the history. And the Constituent Assembly arrives at the question, presidential or parliamentary. This was the fierce debate and the case for the presidential system was also strong. India was vast, fragmented, and desperately poor with no democratic traditions. A strong, directly elected president could cut through all the gridlocks and act decisively. It was rejected, and the man most responsible was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the principal architect of the constitution. His argument was simple and still echoes far beyond India. In a presidential system, the executive is fixed, guaranteed its term. In a young country with no democratic habits and institutions still being built, handing one person that kind of protected power was an enormous, unnecessary gamble. A parliamentary executive, by contrast, must answer to the legislature every single day. It can be removed at any time. That permanent vulnerability isn't a flaw in the system, it's the entire point. They chose accountability over efficiency, deliberate slowness over dangerous speed. But let's be fair to the presidential model because it has real strengths as well. A directly elected president has something that prime minister never fully can. A national mandate chosen by the entire country. And a fixed term allows long-term decisions that a fragile coalition can never make. The most fascinating case of all is France. After years of chaotic collapsing parliamentary governments, France in 1958 built something new, a hybrid model. And the man who designed it was Charles de Gaulle. The French president can appoint the prime minister, command foreign policy and defense, and dissolve parliament. Sweeping power, deliberately concentrated. And it worked. France has had remarkable stability since 1958. But France also reveals the catch. When you concentrate power, even in a sophisticated democracy, the system becomes a reflection of a person holding it. De Gaulle's France was a great democracy. It was also unmistakably de Gaulle's France. That is the seduction of strong executive everywhere. Efficiency now in exchange for accountability later. And history suggests it is almost always a bad trade. Now coming back to India, because choice of parliamentary democracy had cost and real ones. Between 1989 and 1999, a single decade, India had 7 prime ministers. 7 in 10 years. Governments fell to no confidence votes. Coalition partners walked out over cabinet posts and personal ambition. The country that had just opened its economy to the world was being run by the governments that couldn't guarantee their own survival. It got bad enough that India had to amend its constitution. The anti-defection law made it illegal for an elected member to switch sides mid-term for personal gain, because legislators were in effect selling their votes to the highest bidder. Now think about that. The system, designed to make legislature accountable to the executive, had produced a legislature so unstable that constitution itself had to step in. The framers feared concentration of power in one office, but they couldn't really anticipate that power in parliamentary system could concentrate too, in a single party, in a single coalition arithmetic, in a single family. The system doesn't protect itself. It needs citizens who understand it well enough to demand that it does. So let's zoom out a bit and see what did the world actually chose. Of the world's most stable, highest rated democracies, the overwhelming majority are parliamentary. The UK, Germany, Nordic countries, Canada, Australia, Japan. The United States is the great exception, a presidential democracy that has endured largely because of these extraordinarily strong institutions. But look at the presidential system elsewhere. Venezuela, Turkey, the Philippines, countries with real elections and real parliaments, and powerful presidents. The pattern is consistent and sobering. Strong presidents weaken institutions. Weakened institutions can't resist strong presidents. The spiral accelerates. Political scientists call it democratic backsliding. The slow legal election by election erosion of democracy. No coup, no tanks, just a quiet dismantling of checks that make democracy real. And we are living through it. By most measures, the share of humanity living in democracies has been declining for nearly 2 decades. The systems holding up best are mostly parliamentary, and the systems that are cracking are disproportionately presidential. That's not coincidence. It's architecture. Distributed power is simply harder to capture than concentrated power. The debate between parliamentary and presidential is not settled, and it will never be. Every generation inherits the system its founders chose and must decide whether to defend it, reform it, or reimagine it. Most do so without ever understanding what they inherited or why. India's founders chose parliament because they feared what unchecked power does to imperfect human beings. That fear wasn't weakness, it was wisdom earned the hard way. But borrowed wisdom only goes far. At some point, every generation has to understand the system for itself, its strengths, its costs, and the precise ways it can be hollowed out while still looking like a democracy. Wherever you're watching from, whatever system your country chose, the question isn't whether your founders got it right, but it's whether you understand it well enough to protect it. Because systems don't protect themselves, people do. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.